fascinating, Rick, legends out there is about how the fallen angels, the watchers, had even intercourse with beasts, especially a bull. Now, it's fascinating that that's one of the first acts of bestiality that I've been able to find in 40-some years of research. But what's even more important than that is now we've got the temples of Moloch coming into the United States, and we've got the, if you will, the golden calf that Aaron formulated when Moses was on the mountain. We've got the golden bull of Wall Street, and somebody said, well, that's a lot of bull. But you don't understand that the genetic manipulation is taking place now. Tom and I started talking about this, what, Tom, 15 years ago?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a long time. And when we started talking about this, people thought, like, what planet are these guys from? And we're saying, no, we're trying to tell you what planet those who came to destroy humanity. So I believe that the single most, and again, we can maybe have our take on it, but the point is that the promised seed in Genesis 3:15, because there's two instances of the word Nephilim, okay? And you read them both in Genesis 6:4 and also in Numbers 13:33. Now notice the 13:33 is interesting. Once before the flood and after the flood, because people say, well, where are the giants? Prior to the flood of Noah, they were big. I mean, really big. There were the Cyclopeans that were sometimes 90 and 100 feet tall. The Colossus of Rhodes. And what most people don't understand, three of the emperors of Rome were 9 feet. Maximinius is one of them. They can go on my website, Genesis6Giants.com, and look at the illustrations. They can even look it up on Wikipedia. But saying all that, the point that we're trying to make to everyone is now, Jesus said, it was just as in the days of Noah. We're outside of, what, 8 human beings, and when perfect in their generations means out of all the population of the planet, they can fight over how many people are alive at that time, but that's all who are genetically not tampered with. When people have dreams and visions and encounters with what I wrote the book Little Creatures about, every single thing on the earth was corrupted. It doesn't matter if there's 800,000 species of insects, I'm just making this up by the way, or 2 million, 2 billion, doesn't matter. Everything was corrupted. And now what we've got is we've got the substitutionary plan to basically reanimate the seed of the Nephilim. And let me make a distinction here, Rick. I think you were calling them the Harim. The 33 times in the Old Testament, the valley of the Rapha or the Rephaim, R-E-P-H-A-I-M, that word Rephaim is always applied to the progeny, the giants, or the Gibborim, and all of the names that end up in I-M were either the descendants of the giants or the actual giants themselves, in this case the Gibborim. What we're talking about is when the Human Genome Project was postulated, I said they're not looking for the human genome, they're not looking for traits, they're looking for the leftover traits of the, if you will, genetic material left over from the fallen angels merging with the earth women and producing giants. In essence, they wanted their offspring back too. And so when Jesus talked about the demons going out and walking in dark places, imagine this. Imagine a group of people, and I believe that we will prove this, or at least give enough evidence for people to say, there's more here than there isn't here, that the goal has always been to reanimate those bodies that the evil spirits left, because even the demons, they cried out and said to Jesus, have you come to torment us before our time? So when they were sent into the abyss, some of the most dark and ritualistic endeavors have been into the Mariana Trench to loosen and to release many of these entities that were bound up. So when you see the word the dead, you need to go to a concordance, because the dead, literally means the Rapha or the Rephaim. Shall the dead rise to praise thee? Now fast forward right now into our time. What Tom and Chris Putnam were able to get to the bottom line, and I love that statement, beyond all the research, you come to the bottom line. They are preparing the world for the return of the Antichrist, for the return of, what do you want to call them, the lizard people. And when Tom was...
Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.
Explained the Vatican's description of who's coming back to claim authority over the world. Remember, Jesus said the whole world lies in the evil one. I mean, Jesus couldn't have been tempted because Jesus didn't say, you're a liar, devil. He rebuked the devil based on the Word of God. So we're right now fast-forwarded into the most precipitous and perilous times and dangerous times, because imagine the appetite. I think I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, outside of children's derivations, that with maybe two exceptions that I can find, all of the giants turned to cannibalism. And what's fascinating is when the Pope, when all the, Quayle, patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, and Obama and others are in Patagonia, they're in the land of what's called the big-footed giants. That's what Patagonia means, big feet. So again, I think that it's critical that people understand this isn't nonsense. This isn't heresy. And I stand with Tom Horn's statement. You cannot understand the Old Testament leading into the New. Jesus said, lo, I come in the volume of the books that is written of me to do thy will, unless you understand the nature of conflict. And that, Rick, is what I'm going to be doing with you on Praiser, and I talk about it with Tom when I'm on Skywatch. God's people have got to understand spiritual warfare goes beyond a migraine headache or an errant brother. We're fighting against things that have been largely invisible that are now becoming visible. The biggest scientific experiment in the history of mankind, CERN and the sub-versions of CERN, isn't it fascinating that the number one theme of that is obviously Shiva, the destroyer of worlds and cosmic recreation. Let me make it clear. You couldn't have a better poster, fallen angel, and I believe there's definitely a demon is a disembodied spirit. A fallen angel is that which followed Lucifer out of heaven, and I believe they control the world behind the scenes. That's the only way you can see such relevant evil. But the idea is this, that the biggest money in the world is pouring into CERN. Isn't it fascinating? The God particle, that's what, it's named, the Higgs boson, obviously. But even today, I got an email from somebody talking about blowing up the trace patterns of all of the particle photographs or digital images and seeing all the faces there. And Rick, I was contacted a couple of years ago, I think, and through a third party. They said these scientists at CERN listen to you. They would be scared to contact you. And that's when they started seeing entities at the end of the chamber. And I think that people have got to understand, CERN, God said to us, one of the most important gifts of the Holy Spirit is discernment. And I find it fascinating. It's not a play on words. It's an incorporation. And even though CERN is the acronym for, the group behind it, they are literally trying to define the God particle. I believe they're trying to build a weapon that they believe that they can make war against God. Because what Tom's talking about, just as in the beginning, they are coming to make a greater war. And Jesus said there's never been a time like it, nor would be again. So that means it's even transcends and goes beyond what's happened in history. And except the days be short, and there be no flesh left alive. Yet for the elect's sake.
And if I can, Steve, at some point, though, I would like to say another additional thing about what happened at Mount Graham and the American Indians and why we pursued seeking their knowledge, because a lot of people might think of that and say, well, who cares what American Indians think? I mean, it's what? It's just a bunch of New Age psychobabble. Who cares what they think? And what does that have to do with the Bible? But we found there really was a very strong connection.
Go ahead.
Well, just only that when we came off the mountain and we learned from the Apache that they have this, their oldest history involves a story that sounds like it was taken out of the Old Testament. The great God created everything good on the earth, then a portal opened, a fallen reptilian deceiver, and when you see their ancient petroglyphs, which were written at the same time as the Old Testament was written, they show a reptilian with a halo around his head coming through a doorway in the four corners. He teaches the American Indians to practice witchcraft. And by the way, I went to the Four Corners, met with one of the academics from the Navajo Nation, Dr. Don Mose. He's a third-generation medicine man and an academic, very sympathetic to Christians. However, he's got a lot of Christian friends. I actually got my meeting set up with him through an American missionary to the American Indians. But he told us in the native tongue. He allowed me to interview him for 3 hours about the oldest stories of American history. And what happened to the Anasazi, whose name can actually be translated an ancient alien enemy, and why they left. And
please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.
Departed their cliff dwellings there in the Four Corners. He explained their petroglyphs to me, and this story of the great creator who made everything beautiful, everything wonderful. Then the doorway opened, this reptilian deceiver comes through, which was basically a seraphim, a fallen flying seraphim. If you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way, it describes the leader of the Watchers who came down and created these giants that we're talking about today. And it actually names him Makarisha, but it describes him as being very reptilian, very dark in appearance, with snake-like appearance, a very scary to look upon. Well, that's exactly what is depicted in the American Indian petroglyphs. And as soon as this doorway opens, how'd the doorway open, by the way? Both the petroglyphs explain it, and Dr. Don Mose explains that this deceiver came through, and he began teaching the Indians to practice pharmakia, sorcery, magic, mind-expanding drugs in their underground kivas for the purposes of circumventing God, in order to open doorways to entities that were beyond a veil. And so this is exactly what the book of Revelation chapter 9 talks about, that when the doorways of the earth are open. In Revelation 9, it describes the angels that are bound in the great river Euphrates coming up to the surface of the earth. It also describes a mighty angel that comes down and opens the bottomless pit, and up out of the earth come through these gateways, these doorways.
consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.